This is the plaintiff, Benedict Agnello. He says he worked for the defendant, got hurt, and when he filed for workman's comp, he was unceremoniously fired. Next day, he went to get his tools, which are worth at least $100 grand, and was forbidden entrance. So he sent his cousin the next day and found many of his things were stolen and missing. He's suing for $1,010, the amount he's owed. This is the defendant, Richard Stiano. He says this guy's a scammer who had a previous injury and had to get an operation on it. He told him very clearly that when he was away, he had to lock his tools up because he wasn't going to be responsible for anything he claimed was missing. The guy basically got himself fired and is doing all he can to strike back by filing this bogus lawsuit. He's accused of being a darn tool.
Okay, Benedict Agnello, you are suing National Compressor Exchange Incorporated, represented here by Richard Stiano.
Correct.
You are the owner, correct?
Yes.
Okay. For $1,010 worth of missing tools that you say were his responsibility to protect, and he didn't, and have now apparently been stolen or are missing. Tell me what's going on.
Well, on Friday, March 12th, I was having surgery.
Okay, what kind of surgery?
Recurring tendonitis.
Okay. How long had you had that?
Well, I started with the company in, I believe, July of '08, and in December, I started having the problem.
Was it work-related?
Yes, it is.
Okay, how did you get it?
Pretty much by using a 5-pound hammer.
Okay, what kind of work do you do?
I disassemble machinery.
All right, what happened when you left to get surgery?
I was told that Richard said, lock up your tools. I said, if I lock up my tools, 2 sections are not gonna have tools to do their job.
Okay.
What I'll do is, he said, well, we'll get them tools.
Okay.
So I spoke to Ray, my coworker. I gave him the keys to my toolbox, and I said, when your tools come in that Richard said they were gonna purchase, take my tools, put them away, and lock them up.
Okay, but, okay, so the owner of the company says, if you're leaving for surgery, lock up your tools. And you say, no, I'm not going to do that because people who work for you need my tools?
Right.
Why don't you just make this is a big company, right? How many employees do you have?
42.
42 employees. Why doesn't he buy his own darn tools? Why don't you buy your own darn tools?
Well, the way it is when you're hired, you have to have your own tools.
Okay.
We do supply.
Don't your guys have their own tools, or they have his tools?
They all have their own tools, except in Ben's mine, they have his tools.
Okay, all right. So now let's get back to you. So you allowed somebody else to have a key to your tools, and then you go off to have surgery, and then what happens when you come back from surgery?
Well, I went back the next week, let Richard know how things were going, and I wanted to talk to the co-worker to find out if the tools were purchased and given to him.
Okay.
They weren't. I let him know I'll be back tomorrow, going to secure my tools.
So did you lock up your tools?
They wouldn't let me on the property.
Okay, who wouldn't let you on the property?
Tom, the supervisor.
Okay, and why wouldn't he let you on the property?
I think I basically was throwing him under the bus because he was supposed to be responsible for getting the tools.
Why didn't you just call your friend who you left with the key and tell your friend to lock up your tools?
I didn't get to see him. They wouldn't let me on the property.
Could you call your friend who you left?
I didn't have his phone number.
You didn't have the phone number of a person who you left access to $100,000 worth of tools to?
No, I didn't.
Really? Wow. Okay, so go ahead.
But as I said, when I...
So what happens? Do you ever come back for your tools?
After I was told I couldn't get on the property, I came back the next day with my father, which was a Wednesday.
Okay.
And I was again denied access to the company, so I called the police.
Okay.
And requested an escort so I could go in and get my property.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it was change of shift, and by the time the police got there, they were all ready to close. And what they did was they took my tools, picked them up on 2 forklifts, and put them in the middle of the street.
Okay, and then what happened?
I took the tools out of the toolbox, put them in my father's car, waited for my cousin to arrive with his truck.
Okay.
So we could get the toolbox on his truck.
Okay, and
We
did you do that?
We did that.
All right, so when did you discover that there were missing tools?
On Thursday.
When?
Of that same week.
Okay, but I don't understand, because you didn't look through the box when you were there?
The only thing I had time to do was take the tools out, put them in a cardboard box.
So is that a
get 'em
yes
out.
to my question? I'm not understanding.
I didn't inventory them at
That's
that
it.
time.
Okay, so then 2 days later, you realize that there are tools missing.
When I went back to my cousin's storage shed, that's what I was doing. I was
Okay.
inventorying my tools,
Who has access to your cousin's storage shed?
myself and my cousin.
Okay. All right. What's going on, Mr. Staiano?
Well, it's definitely not that story.
So, does this guy have a case, this plaintiff?
No, I don't think so. He left his tools there.
He left his tools. Did he have a duty to take his tools when he was on extended leave?
Definitely, he should have made arrangements, you know, if he knew he was going to be gone.
You're nodding.
Yes, I believe he should have taken them with him when he went.
So he's a loser here.
I think so.
Fair enough. Going inside the courtroom.
First of all, I guess I should go back to the workman's comp situation. He had a chronic elbow injury when he came to work for me.
Okay.
And he even told me about it. However, in December of '08, he was beat up. He came in, he had black eyes and all messed up. And the elbow he has all these problems with was in a sling. In January the 10th, he took a couple of days off, 3 days, got a doctor's note saying that he had tendinitis. And he had this chronic problem all the way through. This year, he said that he was going to have an operation. I said, all right. He said it was on his elbow. I said, just let me know when. And he came to me and he told me he was going to have the operation in March. And I said, fine. He scheduled the operation. He scheduled probably on the 10th or the 12th. He scheduled the operation. And that Monday, the 15th, he came to work slightly intoxicated. Maybe he had some painkillers for his elbow. He was in a sling again. And
I mean, do you know he was intoxicated, or you're just saying he was out of it and it might have been painkillers?
Well, I don't know. It was one or the other.
Okay.
And my manager called me from the floor because I'm up in the upstairs
Is that
office.
Tom?
That's Tom. And
Okay.
he said, Ben is here. He's not coherent. He's either drunk or on drugs. And he said, I'm telling him to leave. I don't want him here. He's not allowed on the floor to begin with. And I said, well, tell him to leave. Tuesday comes, the next day, I get a call again in the morning. Ben is here. He's intoxicated. He's trying to get on the floor. I said, bring him up here. So they bring him up to the office. And I walk over to him and I said to him, what's going on? I said, why are you here? You were told yesterday not to come back. He goes, well, I got to check on my crew. You know, I said, listen, you're not a pit boss. There's no crew. You only work with Ray. I don't even know what you're talking about, crew. And I said, I believe, I said, look, either you're on painkillers or you're intoxicated. You smell to me like you're intoxicated. With that, he blew in my face, and I said, all right, get out. I said, here's what I want you to do.
In order to prove he wasn't intoxicated,
blew right in my
I
face.
take it? Okay.
So here's what I said. I said, listen, leave the building. Call me when you feel better. Give me a date when you want to return. Don't come back here. Call me. And I'll arrange for you to come back to work. Right. So this is where he fires himself.
How does he fire himself?
Okay. The next day he comes back again, only this time he's out in the front of the building and he wants to come in. They won't let him in. And he's screaming, I called the police. I want my tools. So I thought about it a minute. And I said, look, is he outside in front? They said, yeah. I said, if he's outside in front, take the forklift, get all his tools, and bring him out. Give them to him. I mean, I don't know what else to do with this guy. But
how'd you fire him?
He fired himself, you know,
I don't
by all the stuff he did.
But at some point, you tell him you're not welcome.
Well, when they gave him his tools, they said, we just want you to know you're not coming back. We're not taking you back.
Like, that barely needs saying, but I guess somebody said it.
Somebody said it. One of the managers said it.
All right, now let me ask you a question, though. You've since the time of his firing himself, okay, you've heard from him quite a bit, correct?
Right.
All right, tell me about that.
Well, after he got the tools, he went bonkers, I guess you could say, and he started calling everybody in the world. And so he put in a work comp claim that he put the claim in probably about a couple of weeks, 3 weeks after he had the operation. He claimed that the date of injury was on the 12th. That's the date he was getting the operation. Then he hired an attorney, a comp attorney, and The attorney, he sent a letter to the company that he was representing Ben, and there the date of injury was on 1/1/2010. So his injury seems to kind of move around.
Okay, now, according to you, you are being discriminated against by them because of what?
Because I filed workman's comp.
So you feel,
and I was fired.
But the workers' comp wasn't filed until after the whole tool debacle and until after you got fired, right?
I informed him that I was going to file workman's comp. When I found out I couldn't get on the property to inventory and secure my tools.
Oh, okay. So
yes,
when Tom tells you you're not getting in here, you say, I'm going to file a workers' comp.
I was being nice to him by not going to workman's comp because I'm a disabled veteran and I can get free medical and free surgical. Okay. Rather than have him go through the expense or have his insurance premiums go up.
All right, let me ask you a question. How do you, tell me how, Mr. Agnello, you feel that it is his responsibility to recompense you for tools that are missing, given the following situations.
Yes.
Number one, he tells you to lock him up and you don't.
Right.
Number two, not only do you not lock him up, you give the key to another person who you don't even know well enough to have a phone number for. And number three, you never inventory it when he gives it to you. It's not until several days later where other people have even more people have access to it, that you realize that tools are missing. Under those circumstances, why would I turn around and say it's your fault those tools are missing?
First of all, the only person with access to my cousin's storage shed is myself and my cousin.
How do I know your cousin didn't take them? And with all due respect, I don't know your cousin. I don't know who else your cousin gives a key to. I know you give out keys like they're, candy. But, I don't know.
My cousin and I are very close. I didn't know he wouldn't steal.
I understand, but do you understand the problem, though, in your lawsuit? Like the holes in your lawsuit?
In a sense, I do, but this whole situation could have been avoided had I been able, at the beginning, to inventory and secure my tools.
Do you know how else it could have been avoided? If you had listened to him when he told you, you're going to surgery, lock up your tools. Because it is not your responsibility to give tools to your pals. And if your pals don't have tools, they can go and get them from the boss, or they can go out and buy their own tools, okay? But it starts to be very difficult for you to prove that management is responsible for stolen tools because of their lack of security. The basis of your lawsuit is they have a lack of security. And through your own testimony, you crucify yourself by talking about how they told you to lock it, you ignored them, and you didn't even inventory it when it was brought out on a forklift. You can't win this lawsuit under these circumstances. My verdict in this case is for the defendant.
Well, the plaintiff has lost his case. This is him in the hallway here. Step over here. What's your first reaction to this?
Well, I can understand the judge's verdict.
You can?
I don't agree with it, but I can understand it.
Right. Why didn't you lock the tools up before you left?
Because had I took all my tools, the two sections that I oversee wouldn't have been able to do their work. So being a nice guy, I go ahead and use the tools, and when the company buys you the tools that they promised,
yeah.
We can
How's the elbow now?
It's still bothering me.
Yeah. You still getting workman's comp? Or
He's fighting that case, but he lost the first round of that yesterday.
He's still fighting that. All right. Good luck. Right down there. Right. Okay. Head right down there. All right. You're kind of like holding back a smile coming out here. What's? You look like you.
Well, I mean, you really can't be any wackier than him. He's doing everybody a favor, but no one ever asked him to do anything with his tools or give them to anybody. Everyone has their own tools.
He says you're striking back at him for filing the workman's comp case.
He just since he got fired, it became a vendetta, and he's gone to like all agencies, and he keeps.
Okay, Harvey.
Okay, Kurt, the plaintiff loses on 2 counts here. First, he can't prove who took the tools, and secondly, he has a duty to protect his own property. And that will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case on the way into the courtroom right now.